am recording. So hi everybody, it's me Sanjay again with my friend Arthur Wallace. We met on Facebook as people sometimes do. And yeah, I found him a very interesting character. He posts a mix of stuff that's very spiritual and then some stuff that's kind of funny and offensive, which I like. I really like the blend. It's very natural. So I friended him on Facebook and we've been chatting there for a while, but we've never actually spoken on video. So this is our first time talking. So yeah, he's an interesting guy, and I just wanted to interview him to just have a fun interview. So Arthur, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, as Sanjay mentioned, my name's Arthur Wallace. I live in South Dakota in the beautiful, desolate, freezing Midwest section of the US at the moment. Oh, wow. I've had a pretty interesting life up to this point, and it continues to get more interesting every day, I think. Musician, counselor, dad, pet owner, soon to be husband here in a little while, in June, as a matter of fact. So very much looking forward to that. Those are kind of the big things.
Yeah, I had mentioned to Arthur before we started the call that he's raising money for his future wife and his honeymoon. So I'm gonna put a buy me a coffee link in the bottom. So if you just feel like it naturally, you can donate for his honeymoon. I think he'll be very happy. But we'll just have a conversation and see where it goes. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I think when people talk about the weather, the first thing they'll notice is, oh my God, look at the weather. So the first thing to bring up is, my God, look at the state of the world right now, right?
Yeah. State of the world's kind of frightening when you take the time to kind of go past your immediate circle of influence and look at everything going on. But I try to hang on to the belief that as we go back in time and look at history, I think if you were alive at almost any point in time since recorded history started, you're gonna see a lot of the same sorts of repeated cycles, and so that gives me hope, in that it'll come back around again if we all that can take responsibility for ourselves do so, and take responsibility what responsibility we can in our communities. That's how it starts.
And that's kind of the theme of the first interview I just had with my friend Eugene. I was just thinking as you were talking that people in the Cold War must have also felt, oh my God, this is the end. But if they just focus on, like you said, your community and yourself, and doing what you can, things maybe will turn around, and they may not be as bad as we think they are. We tend to exaggerate things in our mind, right?
Oh yes, catastrophizing, as I like to call it.
Yeah. So this is a little different side note. One thing I found very interesting about you is that you're a very passionate bassist in a band, right?
That is definitely one way to put it.
Yeah.
I love what I do.
The band is called Core, right?
That is one band. I'm also in another band called Minority Falls.
Okay.
Just as passionate with that band as well.
I think the website is coremusic.com if anybody wants to check it out.
Kind of had a little bit of breakup there. I'm not
sure.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I think the website is coremusic.com if anybody wants to check it out. Is that right?
Yes, coremusic.com. That's right.
We'll put links to them in the description for sure. But one thing I found interesting is that, usually like in a band, the singer and maybe the guitarist gets all the fame, right? They get all the notoriety. And then, if they're lucky, the drummer might be a character, but the bassist often doesn't get noticed as much. But I was thinking about it. I used to do a lot of live music in bars, and like really when you're in a live setting, the bass is what really hits your body and makes the music alive, right? Could you speak to the role of the bassist in the band?
Well, first off, you're absolutely right. The bass player gets screwed as it relates to actual recognition usually, but okay, here's my shameless humorous plug there. But I've always viewed bass as kind of the glue that keeps the drums and whatever the guitars are doing, and glues it together in a way that makes people want to move.
Yeah.
When you're listening to a song and your butt just starts moving and you're like, what's going on? That's the bass making you do that. So
Yeah.
that's my primary job.
Maybe it wouldn't be as noticeable in our earbuds, the bass as much. But when you're listening live, I think the bass is a huge impact in people. And I think it's something below the conscious level. So people may not even realize how strongly the bass is making the music enjoyable for them, right?
Well, yeah, there's I think some spectrums within the realm of bass that kind of duck underneath the level of even our ability to really hear, and it's more of a feel thing.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
if you have a good sound man, they can definitely accentuate that. But
So maybe we can make a
I don't know.
movement, bass players' lives matter. Who knows,
Oh yes, BLM.
right? Yeah, another thing I wanted to ask you about is you're a very spiritual guy. You're always posting from source messages, and not only just the things you post that are outwardly spiritual, like, spirituality is not about what you say necessarily, it's about what you feel and do. And I think all your posts to me have that stream in them. And I wondered how you could connect it with your rock music. Like, how does it connect for you?
Whew. Well, I mean, so
It's not
over the
something that
last,
people would normally link up necessarily. Hard rock and spirituality may not normally be linked up for people.
well, right, not on the surface anyway, but I
Yeah,
think at its core, I think since rock music started, I think that's really been the goal, right? To
right.
touch that inner person and pull it out, because that's, I mean, we're all wandering around to some level of unconsciousness, being totally asleep to what's going on. And if you really look at a lot of rock music that's really made an impact in the course of history, it's really about waking people up. And I have found in my own life, the more focused I am on my spiritual life and my spiritual practice and cultivating that, and getting into the flow, as it were, the better my playing and my writing becomes,
Mm.
for sure.
Yeah, one thing that came into my mind when you were speaking is actually my introduction to rock and roll was when I was 9 years old. I used to listen to only video game music, and my friend brought me in a very sacred mood. And he said, "Sit down. I'm going to play something for you." And he played Stairway to Heaven from Led Zeppelin 4. And of course, like, it'll blow your mind. I was like, wow, I've really not been listening to music until now. And I only understood that song much later in life. He talks about the stairway to heaven versus following the wind, following your inner self. And it's really a much more profound song than I thought it was. It's very deep actually. So I wondered, could you think of any song from your past that influenced you the same way?
Oh boy. um I, don't ask me why I haven't even thought of this song in quite some time, but Soft by a band called Sensefield. um
Mm,
if you haven't heard it, I recommend that you pull it up on YouTube as soon as we're done and listen to it. It's just a really, it's a great song, great band.
wh- what has it meant to
Sensefield.
you,
Oh, well, you
if
know,
you don't mind sharing?
so growing up, I was always kind of the shy, nerdy, um, never really fit in anywhere. And so, of course, as I'm getting older and getting into middle school, um, I start hanging out with all the people that my parents don't want me hanging out with. Um, and I always seem to have a hard time connecting with people, and
Sure.
that was kind of like a theme song in that regard. But um, it doesn't have to be difficult. We can connect to each other on a very, very basic, primal level that doesn't need to be complicated with all the nuanced differences that we perceive and interject, um, into our lives.
Yeah.
We all bleed red, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what we say in the morning, what we watch in the morning, what we drink, eat. We're all the same.
Yeah. I was reminded when you were speaking, there are a couple Linkin Park songs that just came to my mind. One was that song Numb, how, the
Yeah,
person's pressuring him to like fit in, but he's not, he feels numb. And then another song, Somewhere I Belong, which is literally about the same
yeah,
thing you just
love
said.
that song.
And I think sometimes maybe like, yeah, there's a funny uh, distance between what's called the left and the right, whereas the left may be more artistic and the right may be more traditional. But like you said, I think we all bleed red and it's kind of the same thing. It's just different ways of expressing the same basic human
Yes,
impulses, right?
yes,
So yeah,
exactly.
another thing I was very curious about along this note is like, how have you felt around traditional religion growing up? Did you feel excluded or included? Did you like it or not like it? How does it feel for you?
Well, uh, that was different at different points in my life. I was raised in a very, very traditional Catholic household, and as I grew older, I really started to question, you know, so let me get this straight. I go and I steal this car, and I say like 75 Hail Marys and a couple Our Fathers and maybe a beatitude or two, and I'm going to be good. I mean, that just made no sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, so I started searching early on um, in my life for a little bit deeper spiritual meaning than I found, and so I guess you can say I really felt disconnected from from the spirituality that I was taught probably as an early teenager. And
Mm,
about the time I really started kind of feeling my way around, you could say, I really fell into the whole drugs and alcohol um, trap, I suppose, that a lot of musicians find themselves in.
mhm.
And oh boy, yeah, life was a roller coaster for the next several decades, and until it was about 6 years ago when I really kind of started straightening out and getting back on a path that was focused on spirituality at its center. And I mean, my life has really kind of bloomed, I guess is the only way I can say it, from that point forward. That's not to say that I didn't have anything cool happening before that, because I certainly did. My son is turned 20 a couple months ago, so there's obviously a lot of good stuff going on over the decades, but a lot of clarity has come to me in the more recent years as it regards to spirituality and
Yeah.
what I'm here for and what I'm called to do.
One thing I noticed that occurs to me as you speak is I've noticed that whenever a drug addict or alcoholic recovers, they become very, very strikingly humble, kind, egoless people. Have you ever seen this?
Well, and that really that's not unique to musicians. That is the path of recovery if
Hmm.
if you're really kind of, I guess, for lack of a better way for me to put it, doing it right.
Hmm.
Um, that's in all of my years and trying to find some peace in my addiction. It was setting my ego aside and allowing it to be shattered was what allowed me to be free of my addiction and not have this obsessive compulsion to go back to it or wonder, how it would be if I tried it again, or and invariably that would always lead me back to, oh yeah, of course I can drink this. I haven't drank for a while. And then before you know it, I'm wondering what the hell just happened with the last 2 years of my life, and trying to start all over again.
Yeah. It seems like what I've seen anyways, the only way to really escape it is to really completely surrender or very close to completely surrender to the divine, right? There's almost no other way to beat it.
Yeah, that's been my experience. And I always, it's not like all of a sudden 6 years ago that was a new concept thrown at me, but my perception of it definitely changed, and I realized, surrender is just when you're done throwing your troops at a battle where you know your men are just going to get killed, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
the general sees the battlefield and he's like, all right, well, we're effed. We better stop here because we can do something if we're alive. And that's really, I finally figured that out, and here I am, still alive and flourishing.
Nice. Yeah. So it's a little bit heavy. Let's maybe change topics for a second. I was also very
Yeah.
curious to ask you, like, what does it feel like when you perform or when you write music? Can you describe your musical experience in like visceral terms for the viewers?
Oofta. That varies from occasion to occasion, song to song. Um, there are a lot of nights where I really couldn't even tell you what it felt like. I just knew it was great and it was fun, and I was so pumped with adrenaline and whatnot that we do what we do. Um, and then there's nights where I can think of playing songs that are exceptionally charged for me, where I literally can feel goosebumps on my arms as we just nail a part, or just the deep inner sense of satisfaction. And it's a blessing to be in a place where I can say it goes on autopilot a lot of the time. We rewind like 20 years when I was performing and old drinking, and I wouldn't remember what happened because I was drunk, not because I was just consumed by the music. And today, we'll play three 1-hour sets and get done, and I'm like, all right, let's pack it up. And I couldn't really pull out a lot of exact moments unless something in particular jumped out, like somebody throwing something up on stage, or trying to get on stage. That's always fun. Sometimes people get a little exuberant and have had too much to drink and don't really understand the consequences of what they think they're doing, but that is what it is.
Yeah. It sounds like you're describing flow state where you're really not there. It's very common
Yeah.
for you when you play, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah. I thought I'd do something interesting now is maybe we'll switch it up. You've been seeing me post and you've been seeing a little bit about me. So I thought if you wanted to, it's a little bit intense to be put on the spot for so long. So I thought I would switch it up and see if you wanted to ask me anything.
Well, I
Or
was
not, either way.
so I was honestly really kind of taken aback when you're like, "Hey, can I interview you for my podcast?" I'm like, "You have a podcast?" I literally know pretty much nothing about you.
Yeah.
I've kind of, because I'm in a couple bands and whatnot. When I get a friend request, I'll look and see, is there anything that says, "Here's the flag, don't accept this friend request." And if I don't see anything, I just accept it, because there's it's a big world, and music can reach people in strange ways, and it's life is about making those connections. So I
Sure.
got your friend request, and I was like, yeah, this guy looks legit, but I really know nothing about you. So
Sure. Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
one thing
what's
is
your deal?
I think maybe we'll just in that case we'll just end it here. I think people's attention span in the modern time is kind of short, and I think we
Oh,
caught a lot of interesting points. And I thought maybe we can make it a multi-part and get to more of it, but I think people can only handle so much intense relating before they start to fry a little bit. So I thought I'd maybe
oh yeah.
keep it a little short. But yeah, it was a really interesting interview. And one thing that I'd like to close with maybe is that I found it really amazing that what you're describing in your music is really a religious experience. And if people had not asked you, they may have just assumed that it was the opposite. Many people, like your Catholics or any Christians or even Hindus, would say, "Oh, he's a rock musician. He's no good." I kind of knew what the real deal was, but hearing you describe it, I think could be very enlightening for people who may not understand this world without somebody telling them in a personal account, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we're uh, not to use an overused cliche, but I mean, we really are spiritual beings having a human experience. And
Yeah.
it's when I found when I approach life from that perspective, every day becomes just a little magical. Whereas, you
Yeah.
know, looking back a ways back, it's just you get up, go to work, rinse, recycle, repeat. Um, and works a little magic today for me.
You know,
So
uh, another thing is, I remember I read this book by a gentleman named, his real name is Wayne Lickerman, exactly the way, like liquor, you know? He was a
uh,
19-year addict who had a he was struck sober. Like he was in a ditch one day. When he woke up, he was sober from cocaine and alcohol, right? And one thing that he mentioned, and he became an enlightened master later. One thing that he mentioned in his books is that it's very hard for people in the West to think outside of the Judeo-Christian ethics, that people could become good people and, lead good lives and be kind without following the Bible exactly. That there's other paths up the mountain, right? So yeah, that's one thing I
yes,
wanted to talk about in this podcast, to show that there are all kinds of people who are good people, not depending on how they look, where they're from, but there are all kinds of people that can be, just as spiritual, but they may not be wearing the costume, you know?
right. Yes. We all have a different meat suit.
Yeah. Okay. Like I said, I think it might be getting a little intense for the viewers to be so personal for so long. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. But it was a pleasure to talk with you, and maybe we'll talk more in the future.
I look
And
forward to it, sir.
and finally, if anybody wants to check out Arthur's music, maybe I'll include some in the video interspliced, and maybe you can just check them out in the description below, so you can look down. Okay. So nice talking to you, and goodbye.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Yeah.